Like I said yesterday, I'll be explaining you the code along with creating a new feature. Okay. So basically, so you can see my screen here, right? So that is the application and code on side by side. So I'll be explaining how the layout is structured and how the code is structured, how dynamic the code is, and then we can dive in to create a new feature. This is a Next.js application, so meaning that the folder names or the file name are going to be the routes. So you can see currently I'm in editor route. So if I click on editor, so you can see that there is a layout and a page. So in the layout, you have an editor nav, which is this nav bar, and then you have the children, which is this section on the bottom. So inside the page, you have editor layout, so which is this layout, and on there is left sidebar and editor canvas. So the left sidebar is this, and the editor canvas is this. So if I go to the editor canvas, then you can see there is viewer and viewer options. So viewer is this section of the screen where actual content is rendered, and viewer options is this small section which is used to make the screen size different. Now if I go to viewer options, here is how the code is. Okay, so basically this loops through an editor config, and then it just creates blocks. So each of these are blocks. So this is a block, this is a block, this is a block, right? So what is inside a block? So block is a dynamic renderer component in which it just gets the component depending on the JSON. So for example, if the component is text, then it is rendering this text component. If it is button, it is rendering the button component. If it is image card, then it is rendering the title card component. If it is navbar, it is navbar component. If it is iframe member, then it is rendering the embed component. And all the different props are being passed properly. So now you know about the block component. So let me show how the JSON is structured. So inside the editor store file, which is a store, so it is inside store and editor store, and I'm using shadcn as the store manager. It's a Redux-like tool, but very easy to configure and work with. So here you can see that each of these elements, like the navbar and the text, everything is just a JSON config inside an array. So the order of the elements is the order of the elements inside the array. So meaning the first one is navbar, so you can see the navbar. So the content of the navbar is this, meaning this logo is coming from this content. And then you have the text component, and text component which has an h6 element, meaning if I toggle this, it becomes h4, h5, like that. It changes, and the content is content. Here is my application to dream job without. You can see this same content here, and the style is the default color. So this color that is coming, and you can add different styles here. It would automatically apply to it. So the style is a different style that applies to this. For example, the style is the style that applies to this particular component. If I apply a style background color to it, then it would add the background color to that particular component. So like that, you can add dynamic styles as well. Okay. And this is the button component, and button component has the component button, and style and the content is the content. And then redirect to. So redirect to is where on clicking on this button, where should I be redirected? So if I click on it, it redirects me to my portfolio website. So that is what is given here. Okay. So yeah, like this, different components are created and it automatically gets rendered. Okay. Now let me talk about the left sidebar. So if you click on this button, you can see different blocks coming up, and on selecting each block, different components gets added to this screen. So inside the left sidebar, the current sidebar component will be selected. So for example, either it is an add block component or a block element component. So add block component is this component that you can see, and the block element is the different editor settings of that particular element. Okay, so now let's talk about how this block list is rendered. So inside constants there is a components file where the different components like these are set up. So this is a constant file where the name of the component is navbar and the default config, meaning on clicking on this, some default values should come with. So the value that you see here, so I'll be adding this as the default value here. So this is added as the component's default value. If we go to the text element, so you can see the different editor settings config. So what is editor setting config? So editor setting config is different settings that is coming. For example, size toggle. This is a toggle, right? And this has content S, M, L, XL. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So these four values are being rendered here, and it is changing the element H2, right? So the key is element, and it is the value that is putting is H2. For example, if you see in this text, it is changing this particular line dynamically. So how is this entire section rendered? So there is a block editor config component in which it takes the current selected component and gets its current block element from the blocks. From these blocks, it goes through it and then it finds the current block element and it gets this editor setting config. And then it maps through each of these config and builds this particular config dynamically. For example, it's like saying like the getting component. So you get component, different components. If it is style, so the component that we have given is size toggle, then the size toggle component is rendered like that. So next what I will do is I will add a new component to it. For example, we don't have a way to change the spacing. So let me add a new component in which we can, on changing that, the spacing, for example, margin or padding of that component changes. Okay, so let me try to add that component and to show you how easy it is to do it. Let's try to add that spacing component to this. Okay, so how to do that is like we have to go to the components and inside the editor config at the end we just copy paste this component so that yeah, you can see this text component. Right now you changed it to spacing and the value you can put margin and the key that would be changing is margin. Okay, now it won't be rendered here because we don't have that component inside block editor config. So what I will do is inside this component I will create a new one. So same, copy paste this value and so like this I have to add a new type spacing. Spacing. Yes, now yes, you can see no settings available. So which is this text that is being now rendered. Now let me create that component. For that I'm going to use this slider component from shadcn. I'm going to copy the code and inside UI I'm going to create slider.tsx Okay, once that is done, let's call this slider here. Okay, and import this. You probably would see a slider on any of this text. Yes, yes, now you can see the slider. Okay, now let's figure out how to add different values to the slider. Okay, so slider will also have a value change. So I'm just copying pasting value change. On value change, okay, and on value change it is automatically changing it. How is it working? Is it is changing it is changing the margin with the values. Okay, so currently it is 33. Now if I change it, it just increases. The value actually takes in an array. So current elements style with the key margin will be taken into an array. If not, this is not available, then we are taking 1 or some default value. Meaning initially this would be 1. If you make this to 10 or something, then you can see that it's 10 initially. Now, in order to show you how easy it is to add a padding, I'm going to add another spacing which has a label of padding, and it is going to change the padding of the element. Now you can see this would change the padding automatically. For this button element, it is not there. So just what I have to do is I just have to copy and paste this here, and it would also come for the button element. It would add a padding and a margin. Yeah, so this button, it's adding the button's padding because the style is given to the button itself, and margin is adding margin to the entire element. Now you can see in our config we also have label, so we haven't added that label. So how to add that label is pretty easy. So for the text area we have already added label, so I'm going to copy the same thing and I'm going to add this here. So it's very to do. So now you can see there is the label that we have here. So yeah, now you can see the labels that we have given. So this would increase the padding, okay, and this would increase the margin. This shows how easy it is to add different elements to the code as the code is well structured. Thank you for watching.